Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of ZBrush Masters. This time, though, you get to see the master, Deryck Pelegrini, and then, unfortunately, me. Hello. So I'll be going along this journey with you, with Deryck. So my goal here is to help you along the way, answering any questions that you guys might have as we go through here as Deryck's presenting and sharing his workflows. What's up, Dougie? Welcome. David, howdy. So again, as you can see, I'm looking at the chat for you guys. So I will be monitoring the chat and filtering questions to our ZBrush master, Deryck Pelegrini here, as he's going through, and hopefully we'll have a very fun time. You guys take away quite a bit. I'm sure you will. Deryck's an amazing artist. He's got a great show lined up for you. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Deryck Pelegrini.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the Pixologic team for having me here. It's a great honor to be around with those great artists. And some of those artists are even my friends, so it makes it even better. So thank you very much. All right. So Paul, on this you're going to help me, right?
Yes, I'm here. I'm your assistant.
All right. So you can say that you're going to be like my
Goose?
My wingman, right?
Yes. Goose or Iceman is my question. Which one?
Which one did you like more?
I was Iceman for Halloween once, so we can go with Iceman.
Okay, so that's going to be the part after the middle of the movie.
Yes, but I do look a lot like Goose, I think, Anthony Edwards, so it all works.
All right, guys, so before I start, I'm going to tell a little bit about how do I start using ZBrush. And for that, I'd like to show you guys this. So I actually started using ZBrush in 2009. And I did like a class to learn the fundamentals of ZBrush. Back in the day, we didn't have like a lot of videos or like tutorials or even presentations like this one we are having right now were not very common. So if you want to learn ZBrush, you had to go to a school or something like that. And I did that. And as you guys know, ZBrush has this very, very unique interface, right? And for me, when I was starting, it was very, very complicated to navigate in it. So I had to do and take this class to learn like the fundamentals and how to use the software. And my teacher back then he's now my friend, but back in the day, he was my teacher. And Dalton Muniz, he teach me how to navigate in ZBrush and to use the software and everything. But here's the deal. I didn't get to use a lot of ZBrush for a while after I actually learned the software, you know? So there's this gap that I have from, I guess, 2010 until 2016 that I didn't get to use a lot of ZBrush. And I'm gonna explain you guys why I didn't have the opportunity to use a lot of ZBrush. So that's why. That was the kind of stuff that I was doing. And so didn't have like a lot of space choosing ZBrush at this time. So the main thing going on here in Brazil, it's like advertising and stuff like that. So that was the kind of stuff that I was doing. And yeah, I did a lot of that, like packaged for presentation and for advertising, marketing, propaganda for TV and all this kind of stuff. And I did that for a while, but ZBrush was not like part of the pipeline of the studios that I was working on at the time. So yeah, not a lot of ZBrush for me. Then I started to work on the TV series, on the TV shows, most for children and this kind of stuff. And I was basically working as a 3D generalist. I have been doing this for like over 10 years now. And a lot of those shows, I did everything from modeling to texturing and like UVs, sometimes a little bit of rigging, and even animation I used to do. And again, all the part of the process was super fun because I learned a lot about the production and how things work. So it was great. And let me head back here to my timeline. So there is this gap. And then there is ZBrush Summit 2015. You guys can put a pin on that. I think that Paul knows why I have this ZBrush Summit marketing here. But I'm going to follow up. And I go back to ZBrush in 2016. That's because I started using ZBrush basically every day on this year. So back in the day, if you run back like 4 or 5 years ago, I started to work on this VFX company here in São Paulo, Brazil. And I learned to do a lot of stuff, but I basically started using ZBrush basically every day. And I have the opportunity to work with very talented people back in these days, and it was great. And we are starting to do stuff like this. So basically, I was using ZBrush every day for like 4 years, every day. So for everything. So all kinds of stuff that you can imagine, I was using ZBrush for it. And that's when things start to, get back on trails for me in ZBrush. So again, I was working like basically as a 3D generalist. I did a little bit of everything. And I use ZBrush for modeling sculptures or do like these models or hard surface or like cloth stuff and all this nice and good stuff. We use ZBrush for basically everything. And it was great because once you start using the software with frequency, you start to get better at it. So that's cool. So as you guys can see, there's a variety of stuff that I used to do. And yeah, a lot of animals and monsters and creatures and stuff like that. So I never get bored working, which was great, And again, I did all the parts of the process from modeling to texturing, look dev, and stuff like this. Even for hard surface stuff like this, I use ZModeler to, resolve all my problems, which is great because I love to be able to do everything that I need inside of ZBrush as much as I can. And now with ZModeler, I'm able to do stuff, even stuff like that before was very difficult to do. So yeah, that's my personal work. But on my free time, I like to do stuff like this. Right? I like to study anatomy and do bodies with a little bit of movement and dynamic pose and stuff like this. Since that at work, I'm able to make stuff, all sorts of things, and basically I go from start to the finish of the piece with textures and light and rendering and everything. When I'm at home, I like to do my personal stuff. I like to study anatomy and try different things, without rush and anything like that. Just sitting down and taking my time to do some stuff that I like. So I have been doing this for a while. If you guys see in here, let's get back to the timeline. So yeah, so I started to work in this company, and then back in 2017, I started to do like my anatomy studies. So from 2009, when I learned ZBrush, then there's a gap that I basically didn't get to use a lot of. And I started to use again in 2016 and started to study anatomy on 2017. That's because in 2015, as is marked in here on my timeline, there was the ZBrush Summit in 2015. And one of the presenters at this time was Scott Eden, and he was doing a presentation on bodies and motions. And I watched that, and I was blown away by what he's showing there. And as I keep watching, I said, oh my God, I want to do something like that. I want to learn how to, do a body like this in dynamic pose and that kind of stuff. And I didn't know how to do nothing regardless to that, my notions of anatomy was basically zero. So I didn't know how to put a model and put the muscles in it and make it look nice, I just want to make the model look nice. And I could do that. So I started to study anatomy. I figured out, okay, so maybe it's a good time for me to sit down and learn anatomy, and maybe that's going to be good for me. So I started to study anatomy in 2017. And I started to do stuff like this. So that's probably why I'm here today, to talk to you guys. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how did I kind of did my studies and what I did to surpass some struggles that I have. I still have a lot of struggles. Anatomy is very difficult for me, so that's why I keep studying all the time. And every day I kind of learn something new, so that's cool. But yeah, that's basically it. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of my process and how do I get to do this kind of stuff, these models on pose, dynamic pose, and stuff like this.
So here's a couple quick questions real quick before you dive in.
All right. Sam can shoot them at me.
Do you ever work in real world clay or sculpting medium?
Well, that's a trick question because I did, but I'm not actually, I never studied for real, I did a class once with Cicero Davila. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He's a very, very amazing sculptor here from Brazil. And, he's great. I did some class with him and I learned a little bit about like real clay sculpting with him. I took his class for almost a year and I learned a lot with him, but I never got to sculpture and clay like as I sculpted in ZBrush, I did like a few exercises of the class, but never got to actually sculpt in clay. But that's something that I really want to do in the near future, because right now I don't actually have a lot of space to do that at home. So, and when you're doing something with real clay, it could get very messy real quickly. And right now, I don't think that my wife would like that very much. So, but in the near future, I would love to be able to, sit down with a piece of clay and sculpt something. I think it would be really cool. I remember that the feeling of the clay in your fingers, it's amazing, And I'm probably going to head back to that at some point.
Okay. One more question before you dive in as well.
All right.
Of the many tools added over the years to ZBrush, which one is indispensable to you? I.e., ZModeler, Dynamis, Sculptris Pro, IMM brushes, ZRemesher. Is there one?
Man, there's so much. There's so much great features in ZBrush. We can stay in this for a while for sure. And well, Sculptris, I think it's great. I have been using a little bit of it, but I'm still very useful. I'm still using Dynamesh a lot, but Sculptris is amazing. And Well, Mannequins is one of my favorite tools. You guys are about to see that, because I love to be able to pick something that has very little information, just enough for you to put in a pose and make a scene that you want, and then start to sculpt over it. So Mannequins for sure is one of my favorite tools on ZBrush. And well, the things that have been added like on the couple of years ago is like the silhouette viewer in here on the top left side of the screen. I am a big fan of this. You can see pretty well like this, like a mass of models in here, but if you isolate like one of those, you can have like a very nice silhouette really quickly of the model. And that's one of my favorite features too. Before that, I used to kind of change the material in here to like flat color and change the color to black. I believe he's painting on the shade, but yeah, we used to do something like this, but in the inverse, just check the silhouette and stuff. But now you're able to see your silhouette right here on this little window, and I think that's great. Especially if you're trying to, like find the right pose and like give some small tweaks. Sometimes you can get your eyes can be very tired looking at the model for a long time. And if you're able to watch a silhouette quickly like that, I think it's great. So I use this feature all the time. And another one that I'm going to talk on the presentation that it's been one of my favorites right now. It's the split screen, because you can actually put a model on the side and use as reference and keep sculpting. So I'm gonna touch a little bit about that on the presentation in a few moments. But yeah, there's so many features on ZBrush, man. We can do like a 2 hours conversation just talking about the feature that ZBrush has that is going to make your life easier, especially on the last versions. There's so much great stuff for you to use. And what is cool is depending on what you do, For example, at work, I use ZBrush for a bunch of different stuff, for like organic modeling to hard surface modeling. And ZBrush has been my main tool for like the past 5 years. I just use ZBrush for resolve everything that I can. And you can see online, there's a lot of people doing like hard surface or organic stuff, like doing like cars. There's this guy that did like a kitchen in ZBrush a couple of months ago, and it's just unbelievable, just using ZModeler. So I use a lot of those features at work professionally because I need to use them. But when I'm home relaxing, just sit down and trying to sculpt something and get some feeling of the sculpture, those tools that I said before are my favorites for sure.
All right, go for it.
All right. So, okay, let's start this. So, even before I actually start, I would like to talk to you guys a little bit about history, because that's one thing that I actually like to like history of the art and stuff like that. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about Greek sculptures, especially when we talk about like anatomy and try to study stuff. I really enjoy to study the old masters and how they did their sculptures. If you think that how many amazing sculptures they did back in the day, it was just amazing. And I really enjoy the Greek sculptures, and they have like those three main periods, like Archaic, Classical, and Hellenistic. The Archaic period, they have like this more stylized human figurine, still pretty cool, beautiful artworks. And then we can go to the Classical, where they have like the knowledge of the human body start to get a little better on the classical period, and a little more fluid, the body, At this time, where they introduced us to the contrapposto back in this time, So the sculptures start to have a lot of more balance and stuff like this. So I think it's great reference for you to look off. The planes of the body, they are very clean, so you can clearly see where stuff are, So I really enjoyed this period, and I think it's great reference for you to study anatomy. They have like very simplified versions of the human body. I mean, simplified, not just say that it's not cool enough. The models are beautiful, but they are very simple in terms of planes and planifications and stuff like that. And I think that those kind of models are great subject of study. And then we have the Hellenistic era, where we start to get these beautiful models. They are even more natural than before. The poses, the shapes of the body, it's beautiful. And so many artists were inspired by this period. And they even like have in the Hellenistic era, they have like this pieces with more than one sculpture or more than one character on the sculpture, like this group sculptures. So it's quite beautiful. You can see that their knowledge of anatomy evolve a lot during this periods. If you compare the Archaic period with the Hellenistic era, it's so beautiful to see how much knowledge those guys had back then. And one of those sculptures from the Hellenistic era inspired a lot of many artists on the Renaissance, And one of those sculptures in particular inspired one of the great artists of all times, in my opinion, that it is Michelangelo. Michelangelo was super inspired by one of those sculptures from the Hellenistic era. And the sculpture that I'm talking about is Glaucon and his sons. So that one is going to be our subject of study for this presentation. So I really hope you guys enjoy it. All right. Let's see in here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about copying the old masters. That I think that is a great exercise if you're trying to improve your anatomy in some way. And one of the cool things that you can do when you go to a museum is to sit down and take your sketchbook and draw a little bit the masters and copy their work with your pen and paper. You can make drawings and doodles of those beautiful sculptures that they have in the museums. But nowadays we have like a lot of 3D scan data of a bunch of different places of the world. You have 3D scans of sculptures and 3D scans of beautiful sculptures. So wouldn't it be great if you can take one of those 3D scans and can move around and use as reference to your study? Well, we can do that with ZBrush. So for example, if you take this 3D scanning here of Glaucon. How great is that, right? So before you would have to go to a museum, you have to travel to somewhere in the world to be able to see something like that up close like this, or turn around and see the details. In this specific piece, for example, if you go to the Vatican to see, you are only able to see it from the front side, You're not able to go around and check his back, for example. But with a 3D scan, you can do this. So that's great. And you can have access for a lot of 3D scans like this on the internet. A lot of those 3D scans are for free, so you can download it whenever you want. This one, for example, I took for free on that website called My Mini Factory. So if you guys want to check it out, these scans or other 3D scans that they have, there's a section in this website that is called Scanning the World. And it's great in there. You can see a lot of great artworks that before you won't be able to see if you travel to somewhere where this sculpture is, and paying the ticket to watch it in a museum. But now you can actually study that. So yeah, now we're going to talk a little bit about split screen. So as I said before, I actually enjoy this function and I use it quite a lot. And for the past couple months, I have been using more and more. And I would like to show you guys how you can take advantage of that. All right. So in order for you to use split screen, you actually have to, your model have to have more than one subtool, all right? So if you take a model, for example, there's only one subtool, you're not going to be able to activate the split screen mode. So you need to be sure to have like more than one subtool in here. So if you go to transform, and here you're going to have down in the menu this split screen option, right? So if I activate another subtool, because I am in solo mode, so that's why it's not working. So if I have this 3D scan and this mannequin in here, I can go and transform and then split screen. Let me just turn this side of this thing a little bit down so I can have more space to work. Transform, split screen. And you can turn around this slider, push the slider, and you'll be able to split your screen in half. And that's great, right? But I don't actually like very much this split screen on that way, like up and down. So if you come here and transform and change the slider to the other, to number 3, for example, you're going to have something like this, right? So on one side, you have your reference, your 3D scan of whatever model that you would like to use. And on the other side, you can have your mesh. It could be like a base mesh, a mannequin, a bunch of spheres, Z spheres. It doesn't matter. You can use it whatever you want. In this case, in this specific case, for example, I liked my reference to be on the right side of my site because I'm left-handed. So I think it's better for me if my model is on the left side. So if you go in here, you can change your subtool that are select, and you can change this. Or you can even go here and change the split screen mode for 4, 1, 2, and 3. The one that I like to use is 3 because I like to have my mesh on the left side of the monitor and my reference mesh on the right side. So in this way, you can turn around your mesh and use your 3D scan as reference, So that's great. You can look all the nice details that is happening, look all the forms, all the shapes, and that's great. All right. So the next thing that I already told about that I enjoy a lot is the mannequins. So mannequins are this like dolls that you can move it around. They have like these articulations, and you can access them going on your Lightbox folder. You can go in project, and then you're going to have like this mannequin folder in here. So you double click it. All right, then there's a lot of options in here. Actually, there's a bunch of different stuff in here on the Lightbox. If you go around and check, there's a lot of good stuff in here. But what I really enjoy is the mannequins. So you can go here. There's a bunch of different versions of it, like hands, a frog. There's even an elephant in here, or even like this composed scenes with multiple characters, which is great if you're studying a scene, like a very dynamic scene and stuff. So if you double click in here, you're going to open your mannequin. And it's going to be something like this. Right? And you can move it around, rotate, and put in whatever pose you want. It's pretty cool and easy to move it around. You can put it in whatever pose that you like. And I really enjoyed to use this mannequin. So for this exercise, I'm going to use one of those mannequins. And let's say that I want to put him in a pose close to the one that we have on our sculpture. So I'm going to deactivate the symmetry. If you press X on your keyboard, then you can move it around separate pace without symmetry. And let's say that I have something like this. You know, he's holding the snake. He has his arm back up like this. His feet. He's kind of almost sit down in something. You can move it around. All right. You're going to have something like this. So let's say that you are happy with your pose. Not with mine. Mine is awful, as you guys can see. I'm not going to actually use this one. I already have one. But let's say that you are good. Okay, I really enjoy this pose. I'm thinking that I'm going to use this one. So you just have to go to Adaptive Skin. And here you have like a bunch of options that you can use. If you press the preview button, you're going to see how your mesh is going to look like as a polygon mesh, you know, like with Dynamesh and everything. If you don't want your mesh to have like Dynamesh, you can take this slide down and make preview again, and your mesh is going to have a bunch of separate chunks of each limb, you know. So maybe for some reason, if you want that to be that way, you just have to turn down the Dynamesh resolution to 0. But I really enjoy to have the mesh already Dynamesh. So I'm going to leave this way. And here you can like choose the density of the mesh that you want. So I'm going to leave it as 1 for now. And you can preview it. And you're going to have something like this. So you can see how the mesh is going to look like. And the ZBrush already generates some like polygroups for you of kind of separating some parts of the body, which is going to be great for us. But you can actually use this mesh yet. You have to make like an adaptive skin. Make adaptive skin. So you can use this as a poly mesh, you know. If you click in this button here, ZBrush will generate this new tool in here, like Skin Mannequin. And now you guys will see that it doesn't have anymore those options that we have before, because this one is already a mesh. So you can already edit this. Use the move, use the inflate brush, and so on. All right. So since this is a Dynamesh, you can put a little bit of form in that. And then you can Dynamesh. It's going to make your mesh a little bit cleaner, right? So that's what I usually do when I create something like this, for example. I just put in the mannequin on the position that I want. After that, I generate the skin and start sculpting. That's basically my process every time that I'm going to do. All right. So if we head back here to our, so let's say I have this mannequin here that I already posed just like our reference, right? So now I can start to sculpting this because I already generated this mesh. Okay. Let me just put this a little bit smaller because I'm not going to use this very much right now. So once I had this mesh generated after the mannequin, I can start to sculpt. So let's say that I use a little bit of inflate and move. Basically what I did was to use a little bit of inflate on this mannequin here, just so I can have a little bit more area to sculpt on, you know? So that was basically what I did. Inflate, inflate, inflate. And then I did some Dynamesh, so on, until I got to something like this. Okay. So now it's time for me to start to copying that sculpture that we have on the right side here. So what I'm going to do, so actually I'm gonna talk something to you guys. Is not something that I do every time, but it's something that I did to study and try to understand better how the body actually works. And after I have my mannequin and stuff, the next step would be to kind of build up this mesh to looks like the reference that I have on my right side. But just for the sake of studying here, to demonstrate to you guys, I'd like to talk a little bit about skeletons and landmarks and why I think that's important, especially if you want to understand better how the human body works, right? So underneath all this mass in here, there's a structure that holds everything together, and that structure is the skeleton, right? So when I was starting to study, I struggled a lot trying to figure out where things were. And I always heard and classes and books and people talking about landmarks, and you got to look for your landmarks and stuff, but I didn't quite understand how it works, you know? So after a while studying, I decided to, okay, so I think it's better for me if I understand the skeleton and to actually understand where the landmarks are and use that in my advantage, right? So for example, let's say that we have this 3D scanning here, and I want to see what is inside of this mesh, right? So let me just real quickly remove the split screen and select my scan mesh. All right. I can take this mesh in here. And let's say that I want to see the, again, that's just for a study, okay? It's not something that I do every time that I'm going to sculpt something. I did a couple of times just to get to know and understand. Again, I'm doing this, I'm not looking to the final result or trying to make a perfect copy of a masterpiece, you know? I'm trying to figure out how they did it and trying to understand the connections of the muscles and all this kind of stuff. I'm using their work to learn from them, you know? I'm not exactly trying to make a copy or something like that, you know? That would take a lot more time. And I tend to do my studies a little bit quicker, you know? Not in a rush way, I'm not trying to rush into the model. I'm just trying to keep to the essence part, like the primary forms, sometimes a little bit of the secondary forms, but I've tried to focus a lot on structure, trying to get the right volumes and stuff. So let's say that we could, for example, see the underneath of this model in here. And okay, so now I have like this X-ray vision of this classical sculpture from the Hellenistic era of Laocoon. And I can kind of see where the muscles are and the bone landmarks and all this kind of stuff. So if you press your transparency button on ZBrush, your model is not going to look like that. That's because I did that to study and try to understand how this model in particular work. So one of the things that I like to do, and if you ever seen some of my work on ZBrush Central, I even put some screenshots of that on some of my whip projects and stuff. What I like to do is that I like to create the skeleton under the mesh so I can see and try to match the landmarks with the skeleton that I'm putting. So you can say, okay, that's a lot of work. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, but that helped me a lot to understand how the body was behavior, And if you take your time with one skeleton, you can learn a lot from it, like how the deformations that it has, like when you move some limb, or when you're moving one arm up, or when you move a leg, you start to understand how the pieces, come together. So in ZBrush, if you take a look at the project in here, you can go to projects again and tools. We have like this real nice model of it's like an crochet in here that most of the time what I do is I open this crochet, and if you open it, you're going to see like an crochet with a lot of muscles and stuff. And there's also a skeleton system in that. What I did in here, I took this skeleton system and I put inside of this scan mesh. And I'm going to show you guys really quickly how I did that. So yeah, let me see here, adding the skeleton. So just so you guys have an idea of what I'm talking about and what I did, if you open this mesh, this project that is it's already inside of ZBrush, you can have access to it. I'm talking about the crochet with the skeleton. So I put this skeleton inside of the mesh and start to kind of posing and fixing the skeleton to see how where the landmarks are, and trying to match that skeleton with the 3D scan. Again, I don't do this every time that I'm going to do a model. That is just for study, I'm trying to understand how things work. I'm not trying to have like the best final model ever. So yeah, I think you guys got the general idea of what I was talking about. So yeah, I put the skeleton and move it around, try to place all the pieces on the right place. You can see me here trying to fix the column of the character and trying to put the arm in the right position. Just by doing this, I can start to understand where things are, and you end up spending a little bit of time with the skeleton and kind of knowing and learning a little bit about each piece in the process, So I think that's a cool thing, and actually helped me a lot during do this helped me a lot to understand a little better the human figurine. So I guess you guys got the idea. So yeah, once I had this skeleton in place, so I can show you guys how it would look like, only the skeleton in here. So yeah, once I have this skeleton in place, I can kind of see where the landmarks are. I mean, I try my best to put the skeleton on the right place, you know, trying to mimic the skeleton that we would probably have underneath the model. So that's what I'm saying when I'm talking about structure, you know, and try to understand the skeleton underneath the body. For example, if you guys watched the Magdalena Dadella presentation, see how much importance she gives to the skull underneath the faces that she is sculpting, you know. So it's kind of the same thing in here. It's going to help a lot if you understand. I mean, that's something that I do. I'm not saying that you guys should do this, but it actually helped me a lot to better understand how the human body, you know, behavior and stuff. So once I got this skeleton in here, next step, again, in this study that I did, is to lay down the muscles on, like, over the bones, right? And because before, when I was starting to like study anatomy and trying to do like the models, trying to sculpt something, oftentimes I was sculpting and looking at some reference, not like this, like an scan, but let's say that I was looking at a picture of something. I have like my PDF with a bunch of pictures, and I was looking at it. That's great, and I do this until this very day. But back then, I was looking at a reference, and the only thing that I had was the information that the reference was given to me. You know, I didn't have a lot of stuff on my head already. Like, oh, okay, I know what this is going, or I know what this is going to be. All right, so I only had this information from the image that I use as reference. And sometimes, like, reference could be a lot kind of tricky, you know, when you look something in one photo and you're going to the next photo and that information is not there anymore. So I struggle a lot with that, looking at some reference, and I watch it and I look, okay, we have like a volume in here, but if I take a look on the other reference with like a different pose, that information, some information of the musculature was not there anymore, and I didn't understand why that was happening, you know. So I figured out, okay, maybe if I understand where the muscles are, like the origin of the muscles are, and where this muscle is going to insert, maybe this can make things easy for me, you know, to kind of understand a little better how things are inserted, which muscle goes and like over each muscle, and that could be a bit trickier, you know. So one exercise that I started to do was to like create like these crochets, you know. And then we have something like this. Basically, I pick like a Z-sphere. I take a Z-sphere and I try to model it in the shape of the musculature and try to place this muscle on their origin and the insertion that the muscle have, you know. And I'm going like putting this together like if you're assemble like a Lego piece or something like this, you know. Once you have the information of where the muscle starts and where it finishes, like the insertion of this muscle, things could start to get a little bit easier. At least that was what happened for me, you know. I could start to see things a little bit better. And I'm gonna show you guys again really quickly how I did that. That's a little bit of the process. It's very simple. Again, just taking like a sphere from ZBrush, and I start to put that on the shape of the muscle on the right place. and trying to combine those muscles together, kind of trying to make this écorché, you know? Again, that's not something that I did at the start. It took me a while to like figure out that and say, okay, I'm going to do that. I was already studying for a while, training my observation and training to, you know, kind of better understand how the human body looks on the surface, because in the end, that's what is important, you know, the surface of the model. Nobody cares if there is a skeleton inside and I put all the musculature on the mesh, you know. Nobody cares about that. What people want to see is the external part, like the flesh and stuff like this. So I did that for a while, but what I want to do is to better understand how those things work, you know. And for that, I said, okay, maybe if I do some écorchés and kind of understand how those muscles are placed on the skeleton, maybe this could make my life a little bit easier. And it actually did. I understand a lot better than I used to how the body works. And this is awesome, especially if you, for example, I really enjoy to make those models in different pose, very dynamic pose with the, you know, arms stand up and like contracted pose. I really enjoy to do this kind of stuff. And it was pretty difficult for me before because the only reference that I had was like those characters on A pose or T pose or something like this, you know? So by understanding where the muscles origins and insertions are, I start to, okay, it doesn't matter if the arm is in a different position than an A pose or a T pose. It doesn't matter because I kind of know where the insertion of this muscle is. So, okay, so if the muscle goes from here to here, I already know this because I did studies like this. So it's pretty simple. It's nothing special about that. But again, it's something that I did that helped me a lot to better understand how the human body works. And I really recommend you guys to try that. You're probably going to learn one thing or two doing this. I can assure you guys that. So I guess you guys have an idea of what I'm talking about. And again, this kind of information of muscles, origins, and insertions, and information about the, you know, skeleton and structure, this is all out there. There's no secrets, you know. Nobody's keeping that on a safe, you know. For example, a lot of this are in the books. If you buy some book of anatomy or art, if you take your time to actually read those books, those informations are there, you know. And for a long time, I actually used all my art books and stuff like this only to look the images, you know. I was only reading the figures. So I start to actually read those books, and there's information of insertions of the musculature and like everything that you can imagine. It is on these books. But there is this site that I used for a while to kind of, you can search the muscle in there, and they have like this classes taught in how about anatomy and all this kind of stuff. The site, the name of the site is CanRub. You can access it for free. You can create a free account in there, and you have access to a lot of nice information. You know, the site is super clean and easy to navigate it, and a bunch of those informations I get from this website. So if you guys want to check it out. All right. So, okay. So now that I have that information set, I have the muscles, I have the skeleton, and I have my 3D scan. So let's start to sculpt something here. All right. I'm going to activate my split screen again because I love that feature. So transform, split screen, and you just turn the slide to one side and another. And the one that I like to use is number 3. And I'm going to take my mesh in here. All right. And I'm going to try to look for those called landmarks, right? And how do I do that? The brush that I use most is like clay buildup, inflate, and then standard to this part of the process. And I'm just going to kind of draw and side like over the mesh and trying to find the skeleton, you know. So
Deryck, what was the website again? Can you do you want to put it in the chat for me in the private chat that you and I have, and I can put it in the,
oh yeah, sure.
That way I can copy and paste it for them.
Let me. I'm gonna send you the link.
Yeah, send me the link, and then I'll put it in the main chat that they're all having conversations with.
All right. Yeah, that's the side. Here we have all the good stuff. And the cool thing about this site is that there's a bunch of options for language, you know, English, Portuguese, and I think there's a bunch of other languages too in here. I just tried the Portuguese version and the English version. So yeah. Let me send you. The one I'm sending to you is probably going to be in Portuguese.
Okay.
But you can easily change that on the website. All right?
Yep, I got it. Let me get that stuff. You can go on now.
All right, so that's just my autosave.
Yeah. I'll look and see if I can change it to English right now. Send them the English version.
I'm sorry, Paul, I didn't hear you.
I'm changing it to an English version for them, so they have it.
Oh, okay. And also, there's a lot of other languages too. If you are from other country and speak other languages,
Yeah.
you can take advantage of that. So, okay. I'm going to try to create like this, what would be like this thorax in here. And he is in a very cool pose, you know. So I really enjoy when the rib cage do this kind of movement in here. Yeah. So I'm gonna try to find this shape. And one thing that I like to do, especially when I'm doing that, as I said to you guys, at work I do a bunch of different stuff, but when I'm at home, just trying to relax, I do not rush this process at all. You know, I just trying to find out the forms and shapes, and trying to have a little bit of fun. You know, especially after a full day of working. So, and since I have the skeleton underneath this mesh, I can actually use this skeleton as reference instead of the scan. If I want to find, like, to see better the landmarks and stuff like this. So let's take advantage of that. I'm going to hide my scan, take my skeleton here. Again, this skeleton is the same one that it comes with ZBrush, you know, so you can use it at any time. So I'm just trying to find the shape. A lot of move brush to kind of find, I also love to use the flattening brush to kind of trying to planificate a little bit the forms. I can do something like this. And again, and it's not all the time that I do this. Most of the time, I just go using the inflate brush, and I'm going to show you guys this process in a minute. I just use the inflate brush and go and keep adding like volume to the mesh until I have my geometry close as possible to the reference. But that's an exercise that I really enjoy to do, to try to kind of understand how the rib cage are, and trying to put the, even training a little bit more my eyes and understanding of the structure. So we can even start putting some in here.
Where did you get the scan again of the statue?
Yeah, that scan is from My Mini Factory. I'm going to put you the link in here. Yeah, My Mini Factory. Yeah, that's a cool site where you can find a lot of 3D scans. They have like this section where it's called Scanning the World. I believe that's the name.
Yeah, many museums are putting their stuff up actually for you. The Smithsonian, I think the Smithsonian has if I remember right. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're starting to put up everything so we can all study from them.
That's so cool. Like a lot of people can have access for stuff that before it would be super difficult to have to see and stuff. I'm going to send directly the link for this. They have like on this website there's a lot of stuff, but they have like this very specific part of the site. It's called Scanning the World, and that's my favorite part. I'm gonna send you the link. You can share it with everybody on the chat.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right. So
I'll share a couple other ones too.
Nice. Yeah, share with me too. I would love to see those other ones that you're talking about. Let me just put this back in here. All right. So I keep doing this and trying to find those, trying to put those landmarks on, like the pelvic bone in here. This one, I quite like this one. He defines a lot of plane chains on the body, and I think it's super cool. I do stuff like this. I can even sometimes, if the mesh starts to get hard to work, you can dynamesh it again. Do something like this. So you can keep going. And again, this process can take like a while. So if you're in a rush to do something, that's not the way to go, And again, that's not exactly something that I do at work, because most of the time I don't actually have the time to do it. So when I'm home, I enjoy myself with that. I really enjoy myself doing this. So I'm trying to find those landmark points in here. Kind of trying to construct a little bit of structure so I can, after that, go and put my muscles over this. And I'm gonna show you guys how I do this. If you enjoy doing this process, it could be pretty fun. If you don't, well, if you don't, you shouldn't do this. You should do another method. That's something that I really enjoy to do. So again, just trying some flattening brush, trying to create some planifications of even of this part of the process, of the kind of trying to find as if it was like a skeleton, but a very simplified version of this skeleton. So you would have something like this, It can try to create those volumes like this. Kind of trying to simulate how a humerus bone would look like. Using a little bit of the move brush. Put things together. So just by doing this, I start to find a lot of the important points on the model that I'm going to use to connect my muscles. So you're probably not going to use that when you're actually doing a sculpt, but if you do once in a while, you are going to remember, okay, here is where I have like this landmark in here. I know because I sculpted that, and I actually took my time to look in it and see how it works. Maybe even do some drawings, to get familiarized with the shapes and stuff. So yeah, you can separate in here. A bit of this. So we kind of start to have a little bit of the, formation that we need to place our landmarks on.
Yeah, I shared a couple more in the chat for everybody, and also Scott Ian's Body in Motion. I think Bodies in Motion is a great website.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. I'm a big fan of his work, and as I said on the beginning of the presentation, seeing his presentation back in 2015 was the thing that actually got me this spark. I remember as if it was yesterday, watching his sculpting. And oh my God, that's so cool, man. I wish I could do something like this.
That's right when he was launching Bodies in Motion, actually, the website.
Yeah, that was one of the first ZBrush summits that we had, right? Or
it started in 2014. was the very first.
Yeah, so that the one that Scott Eaton present was a presenter was like the second one, right?
Yeah, we've had 6 of them, I want to say.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this one was great. And by the way, I highly recommend you guys to go and watch this presentation. It's like only 1 hour the video.
I can grab it for them.
And it's great, you know. Actually, all the summit presentations are great. So if you're trying to learn something, especially because all the people that go there are like very, very good at using ZBrush, and they are great artists. So you should probably take a look at all the presentations. I did it myself. I guess I watched all the presentations, to be honest, from the first one until the last one. Yeah, it's great. So you guys should take a look at this.
Yeah, Eric Wilson, another good one. David Soto's bring up Eric Wilson. Yeah, he's another really good one to learn from.
I'm sorry, Paul, I didn't get this.
Eric Wilson. Someone's bring up Eric Wilson. He's another very good artist to learn anatomy from. Andrew Cause of Anatomy Tools is another good one.
Yeah. So
I'm putting the Scott Eaton presentation from the summit in the chat, so you guys can all have that as well and watch it when you want to watch it. You're not leaving this though. You're staying with us right now.
Yeah, stick with us, guys.
Yeah, no watching Scott right now. We're watching Deryck.
Yeah. But you should do this after that. Maybe not today, because you guys are going to be like, all right, we already saw a lot of anatomy. Let's see something different. Let's play some video games. I'm just kidding. You guys should be studying. I will be, for sure. So I can like start to become different. Another thing that it's good to say is that when you're working with the mannequin, when you're like making the pose and stuff, I always try to make the limbs not touch with each other, you know, not making like any overlap, so I can dynamesh without like merging those points together. So even if the pose of the character it's like close to the body, I try to at the first moment try to do it a little bit more, you know, far away from the body, and then after I'm almost finishing, I put the pose in the right place. So that's something that I actually do. You guys are wondering about that or no? So that's basically something like this, you know. You can even try to make his neck a little bit here. And so on. Again, I'm gonna try to have his spine here. Let me fix that. He's like the Notre Dame creature. I'm trying to put a little of his blade in here. So once I have this landmarks in place, it's going to be a lot easier for me to put the muscles over it, you know. So yeah. Again, easier entering now and seeing doing this. I don't actually do this when I'm sculpting. You guys can check a lot of my sculpts. I tend to record the sculpts that I do and post on the YouTube. You guys probably not going to see me doing something like that on those videos. That's because I'm showing to you guys right now. It's something that I do to study, you know, not exactly to make my final model. And those kind of things help me to improve my artwork. So yeah, we're going to have something like this. I'm going to flatten the shoulder blades in here. So I do this process for a while until I'm happy with. And just by doing the same thing that I was doing here, like sculpting, a little bit of clay build-up, and dam standard and planar, and trying to find some planes and stuff like this, I end up with something like this, right? So the same thing that I was doing before, but with a little bit more time. So what I did in here was try to kind of doing these planifications of what would be the skeleton, right? And I will end up with something like this. So now what I can do, I can go and take this mesh that I built, and I can start to lay in my muscles over those skeletons. Again, just as a study, you know. So if I go back here to my locum, and there's something curious about this piece. Do you probably know this piece, right, Paul? Locum?
Yeah, absolutely. All this is bringing me back. Actually, all this conversation is bringing me back to my college days of taking art history classes. I think I had to take I had to take like 8 or 10 of them, and memorize every name, the year, what period it was made, all that stuff. It starts.
That's super cool.
When you start seeing this, it all flows back into you. Yeah.
So there is a curiosity about this scan. That's not the original scan, right? That's not the original piece. You know?
You're talking about the scan that you gave me from the Mine Mini factory?
Yeah, they're actually a scan of one of those pieces that are actually in Italy, I believe. But this one with the arm stand up is not the one that was made back on the Hellenistic period. Because the thing is, when they actually found that sculpture on the Renaissance, they were digging some sites and they found this sculpture. A lot of parts were missing, like the arms and the arms of the children that he has near to him. And the curiosity is that Michelangelo was one of the first persons to reach the dig sites, and that's why he was so impressed by this model, and it actually inspired him to do a lot of stuff, you know. And I'm gonna tell you guys there's quite a nice story about this arm. But before, I'm going to start to lay the musculature over this armature that I just did, right? And how do I do that? Well, basically, again, the brush that I'm going to use for that is quite simple. There's nothing different about it. It's just like clay build up and flatten. And now that I have my landmarks kind of established in here, I can go and start to connect my muscles over this. For example, I can put my pectoralis in here, and I know that he is like coming from the sternum, you know. And I know that there's a portion of him that the clavicle in here, and they are all go in the direction of the humerus. You can even see in here that connection. So that's a thing. Before, when I saw something like this, I was super lost. You know, I didn't quite understand what is going on in here because you're only seeing the external part. You know, so I have to rely only on my observation to try to figure it out how this muscle connects to the arm. And when you actually put the muscle in there, you can actually see how he's connecting to the humerus and why this kind of volumes in here are happening, you know? Damn. We can start to put this together. But he's not stacking this part over here. Because here we have the deltoid. So the thing with this arm, when they actually found the sculpture, the arm was missing, you know, and they were actually trying to figure it out what's going on with the arm, what was the right position of the arm, and they get around. They get a bunch of artists and sculptors to try to figure it out, like scholars of the time, you know, to kind of try to figure out how the arm should look like, not only on this arm but all the other parts that were missing. And they could not get to a conclusion, but Michelangelo suggested that the arm was actually like bending over his, like behind his head, because he's in a struggle and stuff like this. He said that like just after he saw the piece, you know, he said it probably that's the right way for this arm to be, and that's the way that I would do it. But people don't actually, I guess, took his word, you know. And there's a pope back in those days, like make some kind of a challenge, you know, and get a lot of artists and made this contest. So those artists could make like their interpretation on how that arm should looks like, you know. And a bunch of those guys did like this contest, and I don't believe that Michelangelo participated on that, but a lot of guys did, and the winner was this arm that we are seeing here, this extended arm, you know. So those guys did this arm like stand up like this, but after like many years, they found out they found like some reminiscent pieces of the sculpture close to the place where they have found the main body, you know. And then the arm was bent just like Michelangelo said that should be, and that's the original sculpture. So that it is this sculpture in here. That's the one that I showed on the beginning, you know. That's the right place of the arm, not the one that we are seeing here on the 3D scan. But that's okay, that's just a study. So I use a little bit of inflating here, trying to kind of create the little bit more volume for me to work now. Again, doing some Dynamesh, so the mesh is a little bit more manageable, and trying to keep adding volume. I kind of get like stuck on this left arm of him, but usually I do like the entire body at the same time. Nothing to in one area just like that. It's better for you to try to figure it out the entire body at the same time, you know. Then you can after that and start to refine the model, you know. So here on that scan, you have like a very, very nice like plane changing in here, like a really nice breakup in here because of this bond. So you can try to create that a little bit, getting a little bit of volume in here. Something like this. Going back, trying to complete in here. Same thing on the other side. You can try to add the oblique in here. And trying to respect this landmark, like make some masks. You know, try to find the form. And that's my favorite part. It is to block out the primary forms. I think it's the most fun part of the process, you know. And yeah, you'll get something like this. Try to a little bit of smooth. I'm going to try to put a little bit of the musculature here on the legs. Again, just by following that structure that I create early in here, I can kind of trying to place in the same way that I did with the spheres. I can try to do the same, like the same brush stroke, you know, using the same movement to connect this muscle from his origin to his insertion right in here. So that's what I'm going to try to do. Yeah. So again, for example, on this part of the model, we have like this snake that is kind of taking a bite of him. So maybe I should take a look at this reference in here. All right, so now I have a nice reference to follow. And I just trying to mimic that movement with my brush. You know? So it doesn't matter the position of the arms or the leg. It doesn't actually matter, you know, because you already understand how you already understand where the muscles have to be, you know. So you can kind of figure it out by yourself. It's like that game that we play as kids that we have a lot of dots and then you have to connect the lines to make a drawing. I see that on the same way. You know, I can start to trying to find this form just by laying those muscles on the right way, in the right place. And step by step, you start to see something happen, you know. Again, that's not something to do in a rush, you know. It's something to you kind of do, trying to understand how it works and trying to figure out how the pieces connect to each other, and you just keep going just by adding volume to the mesh. And there is, we already have a lot of information in here, so we can just start laying from sculpture. And the mesh could get kind of messy with this process, so you have to be careful not to, you know, have like this super complex geometry with a lot of polygons. I try to, everybody say that, right? So not secret for anyone. Try to get your mesh as low as possible on those primary forms so you can easily manipulate your mesh without making like a lot of deformations and stuff. So this way you can actually work a little bit better. You know? So there is this back part in here. So let's work a little bit on his lower back. All right, something like this. Trying to find the tensor fascia lata here. Just looking for some first volumes right now, you know, and trying to kind of understand where things are going by placing those muscles.
The mesh you're working on, what is it at? Sitting at 76,000 polygons? I can't see it. Is that what it's at?
Yeah, that's it. Very, you can see by the wireframing here, like super low, you know. And most of the stuff that I do is actually on that kind of resolution. I don't tend to go super crazy on resolution because I'm not dealing with any details at this point. So I think it's safer for you to stay with low resolution. Just by looking at this mesh, look how much information I already have in here, you know, just by passing the clay build up, there's a lot of noise going on. So that's enough for me. I can kind of build up my muscles, you know.
What is your popular brushes for this process for you? So mostly clay buildup, obviously you're using that, right? A lot. And then smooth. There's any other brushes that you in this state sculpting?
Basically that, clay buildup, move brush. I use a lot of dance standard too, to kind of when I need to get this crispy wrinkles, like this, like make some cut on the mesh. I use the dance standard, but it's all basic brushes. There is no secret brush that you have to use to get the result. Actually, you can do this with any brush, doesn't matter. You can do this with the standard if you want. A lot of people do, actually. It doesn't actually matter that much, And the important thing is just, how can I say that? Take it slower, go with patience and try to find your shapes and primary forms. Don't worry too much about details and stuff like this. Especially if you're like starting and trying to get, stepping up your anatomy. This can take a little bit. That process could take longer, and I'm not just saying the process of doing one sculpt. I'm saying the whole process of get to a point where you're comfortable enough to create a human body or stuff like this. Can take a while, until you actually understand how things are, how they're supposed to be looking. It can take a little bit of time. So should not rush this process. And again, as I said before, I really enjoy this part of the, just to go from the mannequin to something that kind of resembles a human body. That's already something that I really enjoy to do, And it's a very relaxing process too if you get used to it. Just trying to, and you see in here just doing this, I'm not very technical about it, like the shape of the musculature or something like this, because as I said before, the important part is the surface, right? It's the skin and the fat pads and stuff like that. It's stuff that you're going to actually see. So I'm not trying to construct this like, okay, like this muscle, he goes from here, then he passes under this one and go over here. Since I'm looking for the surface form, I don't care much about that, like doing each muscle, because I already did that on that crochet study in here, So again, it doesn't matter if you get your mesh gets a little bit messier. It's okay. Pretty okay.
Do you usually have an atmosphere of like music playing and everything when you're in this, or because you said it's just relaxing for you? Do you ever have anything playing in the background while you're doing this?
Yeah. Sometimes I don't have nothing playing. I'm just in the flow of the model,
Yeah.
But when I'm working, most of the time I'm listening to some music. But when I'm doing something like this, sometimes I like hear a podcast or something like this, Most of the time, people talking about art or stuff like this, especially especially on those times of COVID, a lot of artists are making like YouTube channels and talking a little bit about their careers and inviting other artists to talk. So it's been super cool. And sometimes I put those guys to hear what they are thinking or even presentations like the ZBrush Masters. I have been watching all of them just to see what those guys have to say, and trying to learn a little bit from them. But yeah, sometimes I just do this without any music. I just go and keep trying to find some volume, And that's the thing. Most of the times the model could seem like pretty ugly, and nothing like the way it's supposed to be looking like. And that's another thing that with time you start to realizing that, okay, I don't need to be worried about that. I just need to try to actually understand how it works, Most of the time, you're not going to even do stuff like this at work, You're probably going to take a model in T-pose and you have to sculpt them, then get some displacement map or normal map, depending on what you're working on. So it's a very different process from what I do at work, and I quite enjoy that. So very, very slowly, I started to build up the shape that I want. In here, there. I'm not going to work on feet and hands and head because we don't have like a lot of time to do this. But what I'm trying here is like to pass to you guys like the principal idea of trying to understand better the structure and musculature of the body, And again, this can take a while. If you find a way to enjoy that, it's going to be good for you, man. Oh, yeah. And as I said, I don't usually do exactly like I'm showing you guys because we are in a live and I'm kind of talking to you guys while I'm doing it. So that's just a general idea of how I tend to do my stuff,
Also for a time check, so you're about an hour and 45 minutes in, just so you know.
Yeah. So I'm gonna.
Someone's bringing up another artist. I know someone commented through here. Felipe Furrow. So someone was asking, Christoph brought up an artist, yeah. Felipe and Kris Furrow. There should have been higher up in the, if you look in the chat. Actually, here, I'll reshare Felipe's website. It's actually a great artist to learn from as well. Let me share it across all platforms here. Continue, Deryck. It was just easier for me to just tell them what I'm doing.
No, you can interrupt at any time. It's Iceman or Goods?
Yeah, talk amongst the artists. Talk amongst yourself. Talk, coffee talk. What sculptor do you like to look at for reference? The time varies depending on the artist. So I was just giving Deryck a time check so he knew how deep he was in at this time. So the ZBrush Masters usually go about 2 hours.
Yeah. Let's just save it in here. Kind of put this. And I'm not like follow any like sequencing here. I'm just jumping from one muscular group to another. It actually doesn't matter. You can kind of organize everything if you want, but usually when I'm working like alone, not being filmed or taped, I kind of find like an order for. I try to organize my workflow. You know, I don't go jumping around from one musculature group to another. I kind of try to find some kind of sensing in what I'm doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the key point too, watching you, and I see with a lot of artists, is not to focus so much on one area. Like, don't spend 45 minutes working on the leg. Like, start moving around the body and working your way through, so you're touching all the world.
Yeah, that's it, man. That you should try to look for the overall. Since I kind of know how these things are, you know, for me at this point, it doesn't matter if I'm doing like this dorsal, or if from here I have to go to the trapezium, for example. It doesn't matter. I can go back and continue from wherever I stopped, you know, without losing my my line of processing. I don't know how to say that. Like something that I'm planning on my head.
Something that you're just figuring out in your head, you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can do it. I can go from one part to another without worrying. Oh, now I lost the other one, you know.
Do you teach any workshops, or any ambition to do a workshop that people would be able to learn on a weekly basis?
Yeah, I don't, but I did a workshop at a studio that I worked on, like a very basic workshop in like teaching a little bit about structure of landmarks and bones and musculature. Very, very simple stuff. I did that at work to kind of help the junior artists that we just have hired. And yeah, that was the only time that I actually teach like ZBrush or anatomy or something like that. But maybe in the future, when I actually learn how to do this, you know, I'm just learning. I'm just learning how to do this. So maybe in the future. So you see that I'm building this and trying to get my mesh as close as possible to the reference. Again, this can take time, man. You just have to be patient and trying to find the forms, you know. Giving another Dynamesh in here.
Okay, here's a question for you. How important is it to study anatomy for those who are just starting out and want to enter a studio? How long did it take you to acquire this knowledge?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, a lot of people ask me that. As I said before, I was working on studios way before I started to learn anatomy, you know. I don't think that's something that you actually need to know to get to work. Unless you're you are aiming to be like a character artist, then I think that you should probably try to get better at it. But to actually work at the studio, I always work it, and years and years before I started studying anime. So, as I said to you guys in the beginning of the video, of the presentation, I started learning ZBrush in 2009. Then I stay like 6 years without using ZBrush. During all this period of time, I was working, and my knowledge of anatomy was like zero. I have no idea about anatomy. So, but again, I work as a 3D generalist. I don't work as a character artist. So probably if you want to work as a character artist, doing characters and stuff like that, it would be good for you to understand better the anatomy and stuff, But, and completing the question that he asked, I'm doing this for like about 3 years now. And when I actually started doing it, I took some class, I bought some books, and watch a lot of videos online to kind of better understand how this works. And it took me a while to figure out how to do this stuff. As I said, I struggled a lot with anatomy. I still do. Things are easier now not because it became easier, but because I prepare myself better to understand how things work. So, yeah, I don't think it's necessary for you to get a job, unless you're aiming for something very specific, like being a character artist. Then probably you probably should learn how to, sculpt your body, or even if there's not only characters that are like humanoids, there are monsters and creatures and stuff like this. So you can work with that too. Of course, if you understand anatomy, it's going to be better for you, so you can use that knowledge on your models and stuff. I think it's great to learn something new. But probably at some point you're gonna need to learn, right? So why not start early? I wish I had started early. So I'm just trying to get. Just trying to find the volume. That looks like a mask.
So Christoph was asking, did you study any dynamic too, like Bern Hogard stuff?
No, I actually planning on buy like some books of him. I already saw some stuff, but no, I didn't actually study Hogard's work.
Yeah, I actually have one of his books from college days. Way back when.
So if you guys are interested, I bought a lot of books when I was starting, and I still bought those. I still buy those books, because I'm really enthusiastic about this subject. Here's a few recommendations if you guys are interested in it. Those are some books that I not only I like look on the pictures or the images, but I try to read those books. There's a lot of information, nice information in there, so you guys can take a look. And I look them all the time. And this one I even keep with me on my site in here, so because I use it a lot, you know. It's a super cool book with amazing illustrations, and let me put in here. It's great, you know. I use it all the time. So those are the books that I use the most, you know.
I'm still a big art book guy. I like having the book out to look at.
Yeah, I really enjoy it too.
Yeah, I think it's also from what I'm designing. I don't know what I'm looking for, so searching on the web, what am I going to put? You know, so sometimes grabbing a book, it's just nice to flick through it and get ideas.
Yeah. So how long are we in it? So I keep doing this brush strokes and trying to find the shape and the form. We don't actually have a lot of time here to do it. Like, I'm not super quick with you. I tend to take my time to do these models. But if I keep pushing, keep going, I would end up with something like this, you know? That, again, basically the same process that I use it. Just using like clay tubs and clay buildup and a little bit of 10 standard and stuff like this, you know? Just trying to get as close as possible to the reference, you know? But that's basically it. So once you have your structure very solid, you can go to the other part of the process, that is observation. So at the end, it all comes to that, you know? You have to train your eyes to be able to capture detail. I mean, not detail like skin pores or something like this. I mean, the details of the forms and how the forms behave, and, you know, take a very close look at the shapes and trying to understand how the shapes are working, depending on the reference that you are using, you know. And that's a very important part. You have to train your eyes to capture the reference and mimic that on your own model, right? So that can take a little bit of time. And again, you don't need to rush, you know. You don't need to try to do this quickly, because it won't like came up. Yeah, you should like take your time and do it with patience, and so you can try to understand the forms and the shapes, you know. And for example, on this, my ultimate goal here is not actually to copy like do exactly copy of that model, because that would take like a lot of time, you know. I could do this, but it would take a lot of time, because I would have to take like a closer look and compare the two models and keep adding and subtracting and geometry. My goal with those studies is try to understand where things are and how things connect to each other, you know. So it's probably not a perfect copy of this model. That's not my goal. My goal is to understand how they structure work. I don't put a lot of like details or, you know, stuff like this. I'm just trying to look for this like nice plane breakups, and I'm trying to put that on my model. Again, that's a study technique that I do, you know, to kind of comprehend better and try to understand better how the body works by using that that technique of understanding the structure and the musculature, but there's a lot more than that. You have like fat pads on the body, there are veins, and their skin and weight, like loose skin, a lot of stuff that gives that sense of truth on the sculpture. And in order to capture that, you actually have to train your observation. You have to train your eyes to capture those nuances. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense to you guys, but
Yeah, it's good.
What I'm saying is that could take a lot of time, So you might as well enjoy the process, because this way it's a lot more fun. So there's other thing that I'd like to show you guys. I have been using this brush pack in here that I think is super cool. Right, it's called clay brush, and I'm doing a lot of exercises to myself, and I'm finalizing a lot of those exercises with that clay brush. It gives like this really nice feeling that the sculpture was made like not digitally. I'm a big fan of this brush pack. And I have been doing a lot of my studies that I do for me and using this brush to finalize them. Especially when I'm doing something that is a more like quick study, You can get this cool results in here, this cool effect.
That's Pablo's brush pack, right?
Yeah, that's Pablo's brush pack. And they are great, You can kind of have like this really clay feeling to the sculpture.
I'll get the link and give it to them online as well, so you guys have that.
Yeah.
Question coming through just while you're sculpting. I know Scott Eaton inspired you to want to learn anatomy, but Ramos was also asking what inspires you, what makes you study so much anatomy, and what feeling do you want to pass on with your art? It's a deep question.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, actually. Yeah, Scott Eaton was really inspiring me to studying that. And what I try to achieve with my plan is to like bring some more emotion, with the sculptures. For example, I did this when I was starting to study anatomy. I took this class with here in Brazil. We have this amazing teacher. He's actually a master of his craft, and he teaches anatomy. His name is Rafael Souza. I don't know if you guys know him, but he's like a true master, And I took some class with him, like during a year or so. And that's him. That's actually me and him. And that's one of his works. He's like an amazing teacher. And pieces like this inspired me a lot, to try to do something with more emotional appealing, like those sculptures that we have in here. Like there's a sense of emotion on those pieces, And anatomy is just like a tool for me to get to that I want, that result that I want, that is the emotion, or try to bring some feelings through my sculpture. My ultimate goal is not to do like this super realistic anatomy, but I'm more trying to do stuff like this, where I'm trying to pass a little bit of emotion and tell a history, you know. That's the kind of thing that I'm studying anatomy to be able to tell those stories, you know, through my models. So before I wasn't able to do stuff like this because I wasn't able to sculpt like the human body, you know. So I need to learn how to sculpt it and learn a little bit about anatomy, so I could do stuff like this, you know, like with more weight and like a little bit more of feeling. For example, if you see the study that I did of the Rodin Vase of the Titans, my main concern in here it's not the anatomy, you know, not to say like, oh, all right, the muscles are all in the right place, they look right, the muscles are just like that. That's not a concern for me because I already have this concern at work, you know. When I'm doing something at work, it has to be perfect. It has to be like the real deal. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of people to make it like the way they should be. And I'm already doing this at work, doing things the way they should be. When I'm doing my personal stuff, my main goal is to transmit some emotion, you know. Like, I think that I'm lucky to be at this time. There's a bunch of artists that are like doing amazing stuff and amazing work that inspire me a lot. Like, for example, you have James Cain doing like beautiful pieces, you know, beautiful masterpieces that I watch those kind of models. I watch his models and I'm like, okay, I want to do stuff like this. And I want to be able to convey emotion in some way, you know. So I'm studying anatomy. Of course, that I enjoy studying anatomy, but it's not the end. It's not my end goal, you know. It's just a tool that I'm planning to use to tell histories through sculptures. So you have like Mariano Stenner. He does this with like perfection. You know, I love his work. I like to see the stuff that those guys are creating. Same thing here. I'm not concerned about the anatomy to be perfect, you know. What I want to do is be able to create something like that without struggle. I don't want to like have like a headache trying to put this off, you know. I want this to come naturally and having like a little bit of fun while I'm doing this. Trying to, okay, I want people to feel in a certain way when they look to this model, you know, and any angle, a lot of angles is possible. I want people to see that and kind of feel a little bit of the, you know, of the weight of the character. So yeah, that's something that I'm looking for. I didn't found that yet. I'm really trying to do this. And I do this by doing exercise like those ones this one that I show you guys and on this presentation, because those masters of the past, they already figured out how to do this kind of stuff, you know. And we might as well we should try to kind of mimic that in some way, not copy that, but try to observe as much as we can, you know, to do our own art, and you know, and so on, and that's forever and ever. But not along those guys, there's like, I'm happy to say that a lot of artists that we see, like if you go in ZBrush Central, there's a bunch of artists in there that inspire my work all the time. Like Total Dutch, for example, he does like this beautiful sculptures, you know, and I'm super fan of his work, and I'm watch the stuff that he does, and I'm okay. That's cool, man. I want to try to get to this level of feeling, you know. So I study anatomy to be able to do this, you know. it's not my ultimate goal to like do like the perfect anatomy and the perfect body. If I have to do this at work, I know I'm able to do it because they are paying me to do so, so I have to do. And it's just matter of sit down and do it. But when I'm doing my personal stuff, I like to convey a little bit of emotion, and and as much as I can. The anatomy is not always perfect, as it should be, but I try as much as I can to convey some emotion in some way. Maybe there's a little problem with anatomy here and there, but again, I try to fix it and try to make it as believable as possible. But the thing is, anatomy is just a tool for me to reach to an end. I start to study anatomy because it was so difficult for me to take a mannequin like this one and transform this into like a figurine that resembles a human body. And since I want to do that, I want to do like those dynamic poses and those dynamic bodies, like doing some crazy movements and stuff like that. I had to learn anatomy to do that, and I end up enjoying the process a lot. So it was good for me. I had a lot of fun, and I find out that I really enjoy the learning process too, not just the end result. To be honest, I kind of enjoy more the process itself than the final piece. To say, I don't know if you guys can understand this quite well, but yeah, the process is what drives me to to make my art and stuff like this. But again, I'm so happy that we have like that many good artists out there inspiring people. Yeah, we are lucky to have like we have internet nowadays, and we can talk to the artist that you like, you enjoyed his work. You can say something to him and get inspired by that guy, or even when you're doing something, you can inspire other people too. It doesn't matter at what level that you are, if you're like just starting or if you're like years and years doing that. It doesn't matter. Nowadays you can inspire a lot of people with your work, and I believe that's what's more important for me. It's to convey emotion and bring some meaning for the audience, for the people that are watching my work. That's why sometimes I put my models with videos and a little bit of music, because I want them to feel something when they are looking at my artwork, not just scrolling down some websites and seeing, okay, that's cool, that's enough. And that happens a lot too, but I'm trying to do something different, trying to, again, looking at those guys that I just said, they are super reference for us, for all of us, actually. And if I can show even to you guys, like I was yesterday taking a look at ZBrush Central, and I saw this super nice like project that this guy did. His name is David Saputra. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but he did like this amazing project, like this master study. Let me show it to you guys. Are you guys seeing my screen?
Yeah.
So he did like this master study,
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys should take a look at this. It's like quite nice, and you can see a lot of work was put in this, and I really admire this kind of stuff. Yeah, it was done with like a lot of patience and research, and yeah, you guys should definitely take a look at this post.
It's one of my paintings.
Even we have like this the last model of James Can. I'm a big fan of his work, and you can see that, of course, the model is like perfect, you know, he's amazing, but the anatomy of the characters is not the main thing going on here. He's trying to convey some emotion, and I think that's beautiful. And I'm trying to find a little bit of that on my work, you know. And that's the thing. It might take years to get to at this point, you know, but it doesn't matter because you have to keep going and be constant, you know. Day after day, you're starting to get better and better, and you have new experience, and you can do like cool stuff, you know. And we have like a lot of good examples of art like this one from James Can, and so many other artists that I'm such a big fan, you know. Just by looking at ZBrush Central, you can stay like hours just looking at all those amazing work that those guys do, you know. So yeah, I hope that answered the questions. Maybe I took so long answering, sorry.
No, you're good. One last question that I think it's good for somebody that was asking. Hold on. Any advice to maintain more realistic forms and volumes? This person grew up in comics, so all of his anatomy is like David Bautista. So you got any maybe tips to maintain realistic forms and volumes?
Yeah, so let me see if I got this right. He's like used to do like comic style anatomy.
Well, he's used to doing comic book style, so obviously now he's trying to not do comic book style in ZBrush, and you know, because in comic book they'll over exaggerate anatomy pieces and have a style. But now he's trying to obviously sculpt in ZBrush, from what I understand, and see if you have any tips to maintain a more of the forms and volumes in a realistic way.
Yeah, that's something. So the thing is, you have to take a close look at the reference that you're using. You know, let's say if you are doing like usually sculptures like this from like Greek sculptures or stuff. Depending on the sculpture, they are very exaggerated. The musculature, it's almost like always very heroic. For it's not, people doesn't always look like real people, you know. But then there are other sculptures that has this more natural feeling to it. So the thing is, you have to train your observation. And let's say if you're already used to like do comic style and like superhero anatomy, which is great. I do it myself all the time. Sometimes I do some commission stuff, and I have to do this kind of work. But you should try to look at references that are more natural, you know. And for example, I have this image in here. A few days ago, someone posted this Howard Schwartz image. Are you guys seeing my screen?
Yes.
All right. So this is from Howard Schwartz. I believe I'm saying his name right. If not, I'm sorry, guys. But here you can see and how many different body types we have, you know. Again, the structure underneath all those body types are basically the same. The skeleton, you know, it can vary in size, but it's basically the same structure. The bones and the muscles that those guys have are the same. The difference is the way that they were like building, you know. Like this is a super cool reference. It's a bunch of different athletes from different sports. So you can see how many difference that we have on bodies, you know. Look how great that is. So if you're used to like do comic characters like superheroes and stuff like that, and if you keep looking at the reference of superheroes and like Marvel heroes or DC heroes or any stuff like that, if you keep looking at comics to do your work will probably look like that, because that's the reference that you're using. So what I would suggest for you is to try to look at different kind of natural bodies, And when I say natural, I'm not saying like not muscular, because those guys here, like they have like very lean and muscular bodies, but it feels natural because there's fat, there's the skin over the musculature, and when you're doing like superheroes or like comic characters, they tend to be like a necrochet, They almost don't have fat, and you can even see like a lot of the skin weight over the musculature. And what I suggest is that try to take a reference from the things that you want to do. So if you want to do something more natural, instead of use like reference of comics and stuff like that, try to get reference of like real people, or use like some drawings that have more natural bodies portrayed in it, or reference like such as this one that I'm showing to you guys. Look how much variety we have in here of bodies, of body types and stuff like this. It's great, that, and especially that what make us so beautiful, the difference between us, it's beautiful, and you have to take advantage of that and try to make your model look nicer this way. Most of the time, like hero characters or comic book characters tend to have a very similar anatomy, and that's the deal with them, because they are all very strong and heroic and stuff like that. They should be like that, and that's great. I love them looking like that. But if you're aiming for something more realistic, try to look for realistic reference, or something that is close to what you're trying to do. That would be my advice for him.
Great. That's good advice. He said, awesome. Will do. Thank you.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
there's any more questions that you guys would like to shoot at me, feel free. I am here. Oh, that's I have like that sculpture actually was shown to me by, like, the first time that I saw the Laucan group was like almost 15 years ago. A friend of mine was doing like this drawing, of Laucan, and I didn't even know what it is. And I asked him, "Oh, what is this, man?" And he kind of did this drawing that I have with me until this very day. It's that drawing over here. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Yeah.
It's from a friend of mine. He was the one who did this. It's over 15 years old, this drawing here. You guys probably know him for this work in here. He was the guy who did this beautiful portrait of Rembrandt.
Nice.
So here I am, like 15 years after doing this sculpture. So again, things can take time. You just have to be patient and stay constant,
Yeah, I agree. We're going to have to package up here in a minute here.
All right.
But if there's more questions that you guys want to ask Deryck right now.
Now's the time, guys. Shoot them.
What's that? I'll turn on my camera back on. Yay!
Yeah, there you go.
So if there's any other questions that you guys might have, let me know, so we can answer those to James. But really quickly, just so people are aware, where Deryck was going was ZBrush Central. I was sharing the links with you guys too, so you guys can have this is a great resource. So this is James Can's for some reason it's not showing right on your guys' screen.
You guys should definitely take a look at this.
Yeah, so this is a great resource. I know I myself learned from ZBrush Central myself. When I taught ZBrush to myself, I think 15 years ago, ironically, I want to say, maybe 15, 16 years ago. I know a lot of people.
Why?
What's that?
Times fly away.
Right? I know a lot of people are asking about learning. So Z Classroom is a great resource to learn ZBrush as well for you all.
Yeah.
It looks like it's having a hard time showing my screens. I think it's probably a browser Firefox issue.
I actually use a lot of Ask ZBrush. You know, always that I have some doubt about something, I just go and look for those videos that you guys do, like very short videos explaining how to resolve some problem and stuff like that. And I use it all the time. So it's great reference for you guys too. If you guys have any problems, try to look for Ask ZBrush.
Yeah, that's a ability. You guys can actually tweet a question and we'll answer it in video form. Joseph Druss does most of those now. But also for those of you watching too, we do have a free version of ZBrush as well. So there's ZBrush Core Mini. So if you want to get sculpting, it's something that interests you. And then of course we have ZBrush Core, which is the middle of the line, well, a lighter version of ZBrush. Deryck's been using the full version of ZBrush. The ZBrush Core Mini is a great starting. It's free to download, free to use. And then ZBrush Core would be the one up above that. And then obviously Deryck's been using ZBrush. So there are also subscription versions of ZBrush Core and the full version of ZBrush as well. Or if you want a perpetual license, we haven't charged for an upgrade in 20 years. So some more resources for you guys to see as well. So Deryck, I don't know if you wanted to add any other items before we call it a done stream.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to you guys for being here. And as for any last words that I would like to say is to this art thing is not a sprint race, you know, it's like a marathon. So it takes time and don't rush anything. Keep studying, keep pushing, you know. Day by day, you're probably going to get better at your craft, you know. And like direction and constance is more important than velocity, you know. So it's not about speed, it's about constance. So keep studying, and for sure you guys are going to be better tomorrow than you are today. And I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to keep studying and keep pushing myself, and others around me too. I try to keep pushing them to be better and, you know, follow this path of art. I believe that study thing is never gonna end, you know. And hopefully I'll be better tomorrow than I am today. So that's it. Keep studying, keep pushing.
Well said. I say the same thing. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll be updating our calendar as well for ZBrush Live. We will not have a ZBrush Masters next week. Steve Lord's has been postponed, just so everyone is aware of that. That follows and comes in these ZBrush Masters streams that we do every Tuesday. Next week's is canceled. We will be rescheduling that. But keep an eye on our calendar as well on ZBrushLive.com. We're always putting when the streams are happening on that calendar, along with we have regular streamers on a weekly basis that are streaming on there every single week. So please continue to tune into our channel. And by the way, his job, Deryck, if you want to quickly, someone's asking your job just so they can get an idea too, even what your background is real quick.
Well, actually, so I don't know if I said that I'm from Brazil, but I don't know if I said so. I am a 3D character artist. Here, that's me, being 3D character artist on Christmas time, Christmas Eve. I'm just kidding. I was not working on, on Christmas. I wear this every day at work.
Every day.
Yeah. So basically, I am from São Paulo, Brazil, and here I have been working on like publicity and studios like that for over 10 years now, almost 15 years. And I did all kind of stuff. I basically work as a 3D generalist for my whole life, doing a little bit of everything. And I developed this kind of passion to do like characters and this kind of stuff. It's not so long ago. It's like 3 or 4 years ago. As I said to you guys, I started to do that back in 2016, 2017, when I did take class with Rafa Souza and start to learn anatomy. But I have been working as a 3D generalist for this long time. Right now, I am working at this amazing gaming company called Wildlife Studios, where we do like mobile games. It is amazing. So right now I'm working at this company. So yeah. And on my free time, I like to do this little characters in here and this like dynamic pose and stuff like that. It's very relaxing after a long day of work. But I'm not gonna lie, I love my work. I don't even see the time passing. I always been pretty lucky to work with a lot of great artists, a lot of great people. So yeah, I have been working as a 3D generalist for almost 15 years now. And right now I'm trying to specialize myself on characters and yeah, doing some sculptures. And as I said before, trying to bring a little bit of emotion and feeling, weight on my sculptures. So that's it.
Well, I want to thank you, Deryck, for taking time out of your day to spend with us and
That's my pleasure.
sharing your tips and tricks and how your workflow is and your thoughts about work. I agree with you. It's just doing, you never stop learning and keep going. So thank you for sharing everything.
Yeah, thank you guys very much for that. It was a pleasure. Whenever you guys want, you can call me. I'm available.
All right. So everyone, again, thank you for joining us. Please keep an eye on our ZBrushLive.com website for more streams, specifically also for the special ZBrush Master streams. Thank you again for everybody tuning in. Wish you all the best. Stay safe. This is Paul Gaboury for ZBrush Live. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.